Good day. In 1772, an immigrant arrived from the Caribbean island of Nevis to America. He settled in New York and started to make a name for himself there. He joined up with a group of people who opposed the King of England, and they formed the early group of people who eventually became the rebels that fought against the domination of America by the British. Eventually, they did win, and they created the American state. He was quite influential because he got close to George Washington. In fact, he became George Washington's chief of staff. And thereafter, he was appointed the first Secretary of Treasury in America. He helped in drafting the American Constitution, and he had a big role as one of the founding fathers in creating the early policies that shaped the American state as we know it today. But for that influence he had, he also had a lot of people who didn't like him. Names among those founding fathers like Adam, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Aaron Burr. Quite a number of them. They didn't particularly like him, and eventually he had an issue and a duel with Aaron Burr and was killed. He was not liked because he was quite influential, and some saw him as a foreigner and did not like the role he played and how significant a role he played with George Washington. In Russia also, they also had a situation where one person just appeared in the court of Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, and he became very influential in that particular court. He became influential because he put himself forward as a spiritual leader who could help the Tsar and his wife control the hemophilia that their son had. And because of that, his influence was quite strong. He got to have a lot of influence with the Tsar, and soon members of the court didn't particularly like it, especially since his influence brought in a lot of benefit. He was accused of bribery, and he was accused of being too close to quite a lot of the wives and women of the court there. Eventually, there was a plot to assassinate him, and he was killed. His name was Rasputin. Rasputin was one who came. His own case was that he was an interloper. That's how they saw him. But there are so many things about kings and leaders. They tend to fall under the influence of certain groups, and those groups tend to also push their own interest. Joe Biden, in America here, we've had a long situation where leaders have come and gone, and they've also fallen under different influences. Joe Biden was one of them. He fell under the influence of a group or a coterie of policymakers who had an issue with the Russian state. Some of them, Anthony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, they had history with Russia because they also had parents who immigrated from Russia, who were part of Tsarist Russia, and who were also part of the Soviet Union. But the influence is not sometimes individual. The influence can also be a whole state. Britain has had a long association with America, and Britain has had a special relationship with America for several years. In fact, Britain has had access, unrivaled access to America, helped America shape policy, and helped America move into the policy direction that they themselves wanted. But since the coming of Donald Trump, that special relationship seems to have started to have a little problem, because another influence peddler this time around, another country that also has a great influence on American policymakers and leaders, has come up on the block. It's been coming for a while now, but that country is Israel. Israel and the AIPAC, the the AIPAC and Israeli lobby in America has become so influential that over the past few years, they've been struggling between, there's been a struggle between the Israeli lobby and the British lobby. In this particular Donald Trump government, it's very obvious that the Israeli lobby is having their way to a large extent. And that is having a lot of people talking now as to how much influence and how much power Israel has over the American state, the American president, and the American political class. Good day, and welcome to my channel, Ibima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Presidents fall under policymakers that influence them. In the first term of President Trump's government, he did have a long relationship with quite a number of people within the Israeli lobby, and he did his best to try and help the Israeli state. He recognized Jerusalem. He had a son, Kushner, then as his special envoy. He tried to create better relationship between Israel and the Arab states. So he set up the Abraham's Accord and got some countries to sign on it. And you would say it's because he had good funding also. Maybe not from AIPAC, because he has not been a favorite of AIPAC, but from Maria Sheldon Adelson. He had a lot of funds from Maria Adelson, and because of that, everybody knows that relationship between him and Maria Adelson. Maria Adelson has been committed Zionist. She believes in the Israeli state. She's Israeli, and she made him promise that when she was founding his government. But this time around, in his as 47th president, the role that Israel has, the influence of Israel over America has become one at a time that Israel has been carrying on a very strong, devastating war in Gaza against the people of Palestine. And at a time that the images coming out of Palestine is creating a lot of worry for people all over the world, that has pitched Israel against the whole world practically. Israel has been making policies that make a lot of people worried. There are policies against children, policies against doctors, policies against journalists, and war between its neighbors, Lebanon, Syria, Iran. It's been, Israel has been quite troublesome within that neighborhood for a while now, but Israel can be sure of the unrivaled support of Donald Trump. This kind of influence has led a lot of people to wonder what hold Israel has over Donald Trump. We had a case of the Epstein files where it was even assumed that probably he may have been caught up in that process, that process by which Epstein was accused of using some underhand ways to work for the Mossad, blackmail operations that involved young girls. But that is still left, that's unproven. It's not, but we know that Donald Trump is very close to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. He has not hidden it, that fact that relationship is a special one between him and Benjamin Netanyahu. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu has so much influence in the American Congress, much more than Donald Trump, to this extent that all that is going on in Gaza seems to have the full backing of Donald Trump. Today, it emerged that President Trump had a meeting. He chaired a meeting on the post-war plans for Gaza. And we have already heard of how Donald Trump says he has a vision for Gaza where the people of Palestine will be sent to a third country In fact, that means that they will be moved away from from a place that had been their traditional homes for several centuries, and the whole of the Gaza Strip there will be turned to a Rivera, some high-powered hotel resort, sort of like. Israel is carrying out a campaign where it says it will cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. That campaign is one that is causing a lot of worry over in the whole world, especially as there's talk of starvation and famine now going on within Gaza. The images are harrowing, but yet they have the unflinching support of President Donald Trump. It leads to questions as to why this is going on now. President Trump is doing so much to win the Nobel Prize, to bring peace to so many countries, or he keeps saying he has brought peace to 7 countries, but that has not happened for the people of Gaza. And the way and options that the Israeli state under Netanyahu is putting forward is the way he endorses. It's a way that has pitched America against all the countries of the world. And it has now made Israelis persona non grata practically in many places they go for holiday. These days we have videos all over the world, from on TikTok and on social media, of Israeli tourists being attacked wherever they go to, being booed, being harassed because of what's going on in Gaza. We see large demonstrations across the whole world, Australia, in Canada, in Norway, in support of Palestine. But all the cries and all the noise about trying to help Palestine doesn't seem to be helping the people of Palestine. And Donald Trump is solidly behind all the actions being taken by Israel, to the point where people are wondering, what kind of influence does Israel have? It has already started to lead to talk. Tucker Carlson, uh, Steve Bannon, and so many podcasters are now beginning to raise this issue up of why does Israel have such a stronghold on the American state. Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the few people who continues to insist that she and Senator Massey are the only 2 people who don't take money from AIPAC. And what happens to politicians within Congress who don't take money from AIPAC is that they get primaried out. They find opponents that would stand against them. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she stands for America first. This thing going on in Gaza is not just the support of Trump. It has bipartisan support in Congress and in the Senate and in the Congress. So it's one that really leaves a lot of people wondering as to the influence of the Israeli lobby. But if Britain has lost its special place in the world, in America and in the sphere of America, because this is the first time they don't really have influence with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is breaking away, not just from Britain, but also from Europe. Does not mean that the war that Biden started has lost its supporters. Britain continued to be influential within Europe, and Britain continues to persecute or support that war that is going on in Ukraine. It emerged yesterday, the President Zelensky put out a tweet where he revealed that the new defense minister of UK came to visit him, and they had good talks and good conversation. This is from his post in his tweet there, but this is the meeting between him and the.
And to yeah, very well. Thank you very much. We are very thankful to you, your country, and to your government and nation for such strengthening us from the very beginning of this war. And we're thankful to Kiev, Prime Minister, for such deep involvement to this process and with coalition of violence. and with the support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. The Prime Minister sends his regards. I did a speech last week where I had to name check every Prime Minister for their support to me over my time, 4 years as Chief of Defence. But this is also about introducing Rich and to stress that our support to you and Ukraine is not personality dependent, it's nation dependent. And Rich will continue that level of support in exactly the same way that you would expect.
Thank you so much.
So that was the new defense staff of UK. Zelensky put out a tweet actually where he said, "I met the chief of defense staff of UK, Admiral Tony Radakin, and his successor, chief of air staff, Sir Richard Knighton. We discussed further support for Ukraine and the situation on the front lines and the need for our warriors and the deliveries of necessary weapons, funding for the Ukraine war, drone production, and joint projects. United Kingdom is very focused in its, one, support for Ukraine, and two, undermining of Russia. It also emerged that they have strengthened. Starmer had a visit of the benefit of hosting the Armenian president, Pashinyan, to come visit him, and he assured him also that they will have a new strategic partnership where they will do their best in supporting Armenia. Meanwhile, Armenia was once very close to Russia, and Armenia is a member of the Caucasus from where the British MI6 and the CIA and the Mossad have significant operations to undermine Russia from the underbelly of its Caucasus region, that neighborhood. The support is not ending. It also emerged that the support, not just the support, the corralling, like that's the word, the corralling of and the encircling of Russia and the continuous antagonism towards Russia by increased support of its neighbors continued today as Moldova received a high-powered delegation from the European Union to their capital because the elections are coming up, and EU leaders joined the Moldovan independence celebration, so that they went there to support the prime minister, who is Western leaning and wants to take Moldova into the European Union and away from the orbit of Russia. These are very small states, one should understand, and these are states that they feel the same kind of pressure. They have history with the Soviet Union. They feel small, and because of that, they felt that they should find the support of a strong ally in NATO without considering the implication to a country like Russia. Obviously, they think Russia has no say in it. So today, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, they showed up in the capital, Chisinau, to mark Moldova's independence alongside the leader, Mia Sandu. So they are showing significant support for Moldova. Elections are coming up. It doesn't seem like she will win. It seems like the Russian influence, or those people in Moldova who want to continue to be within the orbit of Russia, closer to Russia, they are strong, they are significant, but their votes and their voice has been suppressed. Another country too that was complaining and was talking a lot about how they too are being forced to do something against Russia, open up a second front against Russia, is the Georgia. The Georgian mayor of Tbilisi announced, said that the EU has put up a lot of pressure, put direct threats, blackmail to polarize Georgia. Already we know that the last president of Georgia refused to even leave, even though she lost an election. She continued to sit down there until they practically almost came and took her away from the seat. They dragged the presidential seat away from her, and that was when she stood up. She's still now a strong opponent of the Georgian state. Georgia has decided that though they may not be said to be neutral, but they just don't want to be caught up in it. They had a war in 2008, in which the West insists was Russian aggression, but which other historians and people who know a little bit about that war felt that the Western-leaning president, Nicola Saakashvili, was the one who attacked some provinces that wanted to continue to align with Russia. That has put Georgia in a situation where they continue to find that it's better for them to be closer, even if they don't show overt and complete alignment with Russia. They should not be seen to be antagonistic towards Russia. Georgia, too, is one of the countries of the Caucasus, and they are much closer to Russia than Armenia. Russia has helped recognize two breakaway regions within that neighborhood, and Georgia has chosen to tread carefully. This government in Georgia that chose to stay away from the West is not having it easy. There are demonstrations going on against them. The whole suite that is being used against them, NGOs that sponsor demonstrations, media narratives that make them look like they are evil people. And this is despite the fact that in the polls, those who want closer relationship with Russia seem to carry the day. But anytime they win, that poll is discredited. The German state is another situation now where we have Friedrich Merz openly saying that Russia is now a threat to Europe. Russia should be dealt with. That's in all essence, that's what he's saying. To the extent where the Russians now feel that Germany is the biggest threat to their sovereignty now, not America anymore. For the first time in a long time, it's Germany that they put at the top of threat to them. In fact, some analysts have even considered Friedrich Merz to be the most belligerent German ruler since World War II, since Hitler. They are worried about him. He's so hawkish on Russia, and he continues to make statements against Russia. He did make a statement against Russia in his visit to Moldova. He stated categorically that Russia was a threat to the whole of Europe. And for that, more sanctions should be placed on Russia, especially if Russia chooses not to Putin chooses not to meet with Zelensky, or if Russia chooses not to have a ceasefire, because he believes in that ceasefire, and that through that ceasefire, probably they will realign funding for the war in Ukraine. So Ukraine is not lacking in supporters. The supporters of Ukraine are there. The enemies of Russia are gathering. They're not relenting. Trump may be using the excuse of peace as an off-ramp. The people who had always sold the anti-Russian project to the American governments, they did not do a good job with Trump. Trump has only one influencer, and that's the Benjamin Netanyahu. So that is the only one place, or the only leader he's listening to. Besides that, he has an American first agenda. And Germany has decided that they will invest in their arms. They have already put up, they have said they will invest $150 billion to that project. And today it emerged that Rheinmetall has opened a new artillery ammunition factory, and that factory is hoping to ramp up. They will be manufacturing 155 millimeter artillery shells, and they'll be hoping that by 2027, they will be able to produce 150,000, or I think 300,000 shells 155 millimeter caliber shells. That will be a joke because already the Russians are producing almost 1.5 million shells every year. Every year. The Germans are hoping that by 2027, this new factory that they have opened will be able to be producing 250,000 shells. They have a long way to go. Meanwhile, as all this talk is going on, we know there are realignments that are going on. Already, even Merz was saying it, that Russia and China coming together is a bad thing for Europe. He complained bitterly also that this relationship with China is a big threat. Russia already has strengthened seriously its ties with China. If nothing at all, it continues to hold very serious naval and air drills with China. It does that also with sometimes in conjunction with Iran, and collectively they are becoming a big force, especially now that they'll be meeting in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting coming up between August 31st and September 1st. There also, Putin will be staying back to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Japan. Already we know Xi Jinping was part of Putin's very elaborate and extravagant celebration of the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany. The Germans now will want to say that Nazi Germany is totally different from them and all that. But what they forget is that there was a history of Germans using the route that is today's Ukraine to attack Russia. And the consequence to the Russians then was that they lost 27 million people. The talk and the rhetoric that Friedrich Merz is putting up in Europe now against the Germans, against the Russians, is one that is really raising tension, because the response of the Russians against Germany will definitely not be like the response they have had against Ukraine, who they look at as Slavic brothers, they look at as having common heritage, and for that reason, they tend to hold back. President Putin has a lot of problems. He also has his own domestic hawks who he has to be managing. We remember Yevgeny Prigozhin and how he insisted that the Ukrainian state should be obliterated. 2 million people should be conscripted into the Russian army, and Ukraine should just be defeated comprehensively. Some have even suggested using tactical nuclear weapons to create a very decisive and fear among those people who forget that Russia owns the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. Putin has been a calming voice. We see the tweets of Medvedev reflecting the views of the very hawkish part of the Russian state. A lot of them are like that, but Putin continues to be a moderate, calm, Putin a methodical leader that is managing this campaign in a way that is making them achieve their goals in a very quiet way. They are using attrition to slowly chip away the whole structure of the Ukrainian military and the army. They are bleeding the Europeans. They are bleeding the Europeans. These are countries that are devoid of funds now. The economy is parlous, all of them. Britain is on the verge of going to the IMF. Britain will soon be finding itself. We may see a situation where Starmer will be sitting with the Argentine president and the Liberian president and the Colombian president and probably the president of South Sudan in a chair outside waiting for the IMF leader to come so that they can have a discussion about loan. That's the kind of situation that is also befalling France. And of course, already we know that Germany is experiencing very anemic economic growth. very anemic. I think about 0.7%. They're already thinking about cutting down social benefits. Merz calls it unsustainable, but their support for Ukraine is unending. I said it yesterday that all the countries of Europe, all those they are all in now. They know that in the roles they've played, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, all of them know that the roles they've played may mean that they worry that Russia may come after them if America is not there to protect them anymore. In fact, that was the statement being made by one Belgian official today, that the Europeans should be looking towards arming themselves very seriously, because by his own projection, America will be out of Europe in 2 years' time. 2 years, that's what he says. That's the amount of time he has given for the pullout. And it's not, it won't be a surprise anymore to anybody if President Trump does eventually get beyond the interest of neocons like John Bolton, his former chief security advisor, national security advisor, and all the other members of the deep state that are very entrenched. If you can get beyond them and make a decisive policy to withdraw at least significant amount of Americans from Europe, and if he wants to create horror in the Baltic states, complete horror, if he says he's pulling out American troops from the Baltics, maybe the Baltics will find out that it may be necessary for them to start to have a better relationship and good neighborliness. For the past 10, a few years, let me say 5 years, India invested heavily in America. They did. But what is their fate now? They've been cast away. They are now shuffling and meandering towards making better relationships with the Chinese. Modi and Xi Jinping will be meeting for the first time in 7 years in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting coming up in Shanghai on 31st. Of course, through the intermediation of Russia, they would want better relationship with China. They have no choice. China presents as big a market as America, and China is where they get their primary products from, and China is also where they trade. Ironically, they do have much more bigger trade with China than just about equal trade with China as they do with America. And it may be necessary for them to also think about strengthening their trade, making it more robust, and forming allies within that neighborhood, because they don't have a means of influencing Donald Trump. The only entity, body, or person that can influence Donald Trump the way Rasputin influenced the Tsar of Russia and the way Hamilton influenced George Washington is Benjamin Netanyahu. There's no space for any other person. This is where I end my video for today. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment section. The comments regarding the influence of Israel or the Israeli lobby on American politics, the goings on in Gaza, the continued support of Britain for the Ukrainian cause and all its attempts to undermine the countries that surround Russia by strengthening the countries that surround Russia. Any comment you have regarding the views I expressed in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until I see you in my next video. Goodbye.